Hey, speak for yourself, listeners. Before we start the show, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, are just one click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Now, let's start the show. Welcome to Speak for Yourself. Marcellus Wiley here. By myself, Acho is out today, and he's lucky because I would have won the swag wars, as you guys can tell. Looking real presidential. So let the president get started in Seattle, where Russell Wilson was cooking at the start of the season. He was on pace to break the record for touchdown passes and was the early MVP frontrunner. But in the Seahawks' last 4 games, Russ has more turnovers than touchdown passes. According to Fox Bet, the Seahawks quarterback is 3rd in MVP odds, trailing Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Well, I got 2 Fox NFL analysts with me today. LeVar Arrington and his new radio show butt, and Bucky Brooks. LeVar, let's start with you. Can Russell Wilson get back in the MVP race?
I don't think he's ever been out of the race. Now, I know we look at that 10 interception deal that he's got going on, but we can't base whether he's losing out on the MVP race based off of his interceptions.
Oh, really?
Now,
Really? Oh, that's news.
Yeah. Because he's got the same record as Aaron Rodgers. You know, Pat Mahomes is ahead in the wins column. But here's what's an interesting stat about Russell Wilson right now. Even though he's got more interceptions, he's got a higher completion rate than Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. That should be noted, okay? The yardage it's comparable. So to me, listen, we're not saying is he going to win the MVP battle. We're saying, can he get back into the MVP race? I'd say he has not been out of the race. It's going to take a champion's effort with no room for error for him to be able to actually win it. You know, like your boy in Dumb and Dumber, he asked, did he have a chance with the girl? And she said, 1 in a million. But there's a chance. You know, that's what I'm going with.
You know damn well there's not even a chance. I'm going to cut you off because there's no way. Whenever you lead with my ammunition, which is the interceptions, those 3 games and the turnovers, you know that you've lost this argument. Don't try to Eminem 8 Mile me and give me all the ammunition and then say, now what you going to say? Oh, I'm going to say a lot more than just that. Look, I predicted this. Unfortunately, I said Russell Wilson will start fast and finish, he going to start hot, finish lukewarm. And that's what's happened once again, unfortunately, for Russell Wilson. How quickly the world turns. Y'all remember early in the season, they were 5-0, and Russell Wilson was on pace to set NFL passing records. And everybody's like, finally, is he going to win MVP? He's certainly going to get a bunch of votes. Nah, he's the front runner to win the MVP. Let's flip it to today's reality. Remember Russell Wilson was out there saying, nah, I don't want to vote. More importantly, I want to win it all. Oh, Russell, don't you wish you could have yesterday back? Because now, not only are you not going to win it all, you might not even get a vote. We all know Patrick Mahomes right now is in the driver's seat. Right there, shotgun, is Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson is either in the back seat or in the trunk right now, getting pulled as he knows that this is slipping away from him. He doesn't lead in any major statistical category that's necessary for him to win the MVP. And if you want to break that down, what does that mean? When's the last time we saw a quarterback win an MVP without leading in any statistical category? 1987. What happened in 1987? Oh, that was one of those weird strike years, and we saw replacement players for like part of the season right there. So other than that, as being an asterisk type of year, when have we seen that happen from an NFL quarterback winning the MVP? We haven't. So Russell Wilson has put himself in this bind because of the turnovers, because of those losses and the turnovers in those games that caused those same losses. I don't see how he catches up ground between him, Patrick Mahomes, or Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree with you, Marcellus. I think it's a done deal for Russell Wilson. I know everyone in the Pacific Northwest was screaming for let Russ cook. They wanted to see the ball in his hands. They wanted to throw it all over the yard. And what we saw is the more that he throws it, the worse that it is for their team. Not because of Russ himself, just because of the way this team is constructed. They have a certain blueprint and formula that works for them. It's about the running game, the defense, and then Russ making plays when he has to make them in the end. Those three losses, I think, come back to hurt him in the MVP race. In those three losses, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. In each of those losses, he had a sub-100 passer rating. And so when we've seen the other guys, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, have to put it all on their shoulders, they've thrived and they've been able to do it without giving the ball away. Because of that, those guys are well ahead of Russ. Russ will lead his team into the playoffs, but it won't be any individual hardware coming Russ's way.
But yeah, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson have the same exact record at this point during the course of the year. Here's an interesting deal. You threw off and rattled off all them stats, Marcellus,
As
which
usual.
I know Columbia, you're so good at doing it. You do so well with it.
Thank you, Andy.
And from the analytical standpoint of it, you know, Bucky is like, there's none like Bucky. You can't compare to Bucky on talking about the analytics of a guy, right? So your arguments seem so amazing. But when you really think about it, we're not comparing stats to say who is the most valuable guy for the league. We're saying who is the most valuable player to their team. And when I look at what's going on right now, we're basing all of these things off of stats, and it shouldn't be based off of stats. When you look at his stat line, his passer rating, he's in the top 5. He's number 4. When you look at his completion percentage, he's number 2. Number 5, number 4, you can go down the list of all these different things that his categories where he's top 5. You don't have to be number 1. We don't have to debate who is the best player. We're debating who is Russell Wilson in the race for being the most valuable player. His value should not be weighted and based off of purely stat-driven information. It should be driven off of how important he is to his team. And he is very important to the success of the Seattle Seahawks team.
Well, we can't use your premise as our threshold as the way that we view them because yours is subjective. You're going into, well, how? And that's going to be an up and down response from all different people based on what you see from this team and what you see from other teams. That's why you use stats first. All stats matter because you can go out there and be objective about this. When there's a competition, we start with the stats to see who we can separate from the pack. Then after the stats, we can get into story. We can get into conjecture. We can get into what you want to talk about and subjective experiences. But I like to stay with the objective material right here. You say, well, Russell Wilson doesn't have to be number 1 in any of these categories. Okay, I give you that. 14 different quarterbacks since John Elway in 1987 have been named MVP. And all of them had led at least one major statistical category. So you're right, you don't have to, but you got to go all the way back to 1987 to even find that as a consideration. That's not happening this year. Let's talk about his 3 losses in which he had turned the ball over 3+ times. No MVP quarterback has done that since 1995 and Brett Favre. I just think that the league looks at possessions and how you take care of the football a lot different now than it did before. So now you want to go into, well, he's not leading number 1, but he's the most valuable on his team. Okay, I got another nugget for that. See, I know who I'm working with, LeVar. Over the past 7 seasons, 7 different quarterbacks have won the MVP. Okay, Russ could be number 8. Oh, and they've combined for 1 loss in which they turned the ball over 3 times. 7 of them, only 1. Russell has 3 by himself this year. How in the hell is he going to win an MVP?
There's still 5 games left, guys.
He can't.
He can't win it. He can't win it.
It's crap.
And I think, and I know LeVar understands this being a very successful high school head coach. When your coach comes out and says,
very successful.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
He's 500. He's 500, Bucky.
Above 500. I'm not at 500. I'm above.
This year, whenever we play this year, it's going to be great for him. So that's why. So I'm going to give him I'm going to go ahead and give it to him now. It's about to be on the horizon. But Pete Carroll said, we got to get to running the ball. Can you ever imagine Andy Reid or Matt LaFleur going and standing in front of the room and saying, hey, Aaron, Pat Mahomes, you guys are great, but we need to run the ball for us to win. It doesn't happen. Pete Carroll is telling us what we need to know. As much as we on the outside may want Russ to cook, Pete Carroll knows that the way for his team to win is for Russ to hand the ball off. That's why the Seattle Seahawks are doing it, and that's also why they're back in the driver's seat in the NFC West.
See, I would disagree with that. I think you definitely need to have a running attack in Green Bay and in Kansas City. And the reason why, especially in the AFC, if you can't run the ball, you cannot win the AFC. Pilar is running the ball well enough, effectively enough, to keep those defenses, keep them honest. And if you're going to get into the playoffs and have success, and be clear, that it almost costed them winning the Super Bowl not having an efficient running attack. So I don't want to get too far out in that water and say that, oh, Aaron Rodgers doesn't need Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones might be the most entertaining, electrifying running back in the National Football League right now. Don't talk to me about not having somebody in that backfield, because Aaron Rodgers has Aaron Jones, and you got Hilar in Kansas City, and they tried to bring in, what's his name, Le'Veon Bell,
that ain't work.
so that they could try to bolster their backfield.
Yep.
But they did it for a reason, Marcellus. Whether it worked or not, they did it because they felt there was a need. So I don't buy that logic.
Well, buy this logic that in Seattle, that Pete Carroll is going to try and balance out this attack because he knows, hey, that individual award looks good, Russ, but what you missing? Nothing. You never had it before. You never even had a vote before, so shut that up. Let's talk about the team goals and how we can balance out our attack with a healthy Carlos Hyde and a healthy Chris Carson. Now we're going to have some balance to this because that's the best formula for our success. So I'm looking at Russell Wilson like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I try to tell you, you start off at this historic pace, and you've done it before. But somehow, some way, when the voters are really paying attention, the latter part of the season, where you have all of our eyes open to what you're doing, you somehow, some way become just slightly a lesser version of yourself. Let's talk about Russell Wilson being hot and cold, because it happened in 2015 with Cam Newton, but Cam Newton won 15 games, so he took that trophy. But let's look at the last 3 years. 2018, he had a chance. Look how fast he starts off, 115 passer rating, 29 touchdowns, only 5 picks. Now look at the rate, 95. You go to 2019, same thing, 118, 90. All right, this year, here we go, Russ, 130 basically. 96. Yuck. When everyone else is keeping their pace, if not getting better, when it matters most. It's not how you start the race, Russell Wilson. It's how you finish the race. And right now, Russell Wilson's in a position where he's not going to finish strong.
I love Bucky's co-signing of your points.
And
I love how Bucky's all up in your points with your statistical full screen talking about
great.
Let the church say amen.
Great minds think alike. And so when he's talking about the Russell Wilson fade, it's something that I was going to talk about. How can I give Russell Wilson the MVP when the last 2 games he had 197 and 230 yards respectively? If we were to talk about Cam Newton with those yards, y'all talking about Cam Newton getting demoted. But now we want to give Russell Wilson the MVP. Let's use the same standard for them all. Nah, Russ, no MVP. Just won't happen for you.
Yeah,
Are we passing the collection plate around Reverend Wiley and Deacon Brooks? Like, honestly, like, are we in the church of let's hate on Russell Wilson? I don't think he's going to win the MVP award, people. But that ain't the question. The question is he in the race?
You want us to have different standards for different players, probably coaches as well, because your 500-ish record, you would like a double standard in that to make sure you keep that job. All right, it's time to pick our picks for this week's free-to-play Super 6 contest. Sticking with Russell Wilson, his Seahawks host the Giants in one of the matchups this week. So, Bucky, I'll start with you since we agree. Give me a winner by how many?
I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. Give me the Seahawks by 7, not because of Russ, but because Jamal Adams and their defense.
What you got, LeVar?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I got the Seahawks winning, too, because of Russ, who's in the MVP race, by 13, 20 scores, 24-13. Yeah. Wait, let me look at that score.
Penn State. Look at that Penn State education coming out.
27-14 by 13.
See, you got too cute. All you had to do is say who's going to win and how many. I'm going to say Seahawks by 11. Forget the score. It's not that serious. Russ will cook, but the other MVP candidates will cook even more. Download the Fox Super 6 app and make your picks before kickoff Sunday for your chance to win Terry Bradshaw's $100,000. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games, and for top stories, scores, and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Coming up at the top of the hour, the Patriots are still in the AFC playoff hunt. We'll tell you how much confidence we have in Cam Newton to keep them there. But first, the Packers are near the top in the NFC playoff race. But we'll tell you if Aaron Rodgers' squad is actually the team to beat. Next, speak for yourself.
Hey, Speak for Yourself listeners. It's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to Speak for Yourself.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Let's head to Green Bay, where the Packers are near the top in the NFC playoff picture at 8-3. The Saints currently have the number 1 seed, but Aaron Rodgers and company beat them back in September. And the Packers' schedule is on their side with only 1 game left against a team with a winning record. So, LeVar, are the Packers the team to beat in the NFC?
I believe so. And listen, you can look at New Orleans and easily make the argument that New Orleans is the team to beat. But I just don't know that Taysom can be the guy if we don't see a healthy Drew Brees for the rest of this season. So while it looks nice and it's pretty right now, I look at Green Bay and I see a team that is surging. This last game that I watched them play, I saw a whole lot of attitude, a big chip on their shoulders, and the way they are competing, to me, makes me feel as though the talent that is showing with this Green Bay Packers team and them trending upward and how they're playing with one of the more exciting running backs in Aaron Jones, as I mentioned in the last segment. You got Devontae on the outside. You're seeing some true balance, and you're seeing this defense also tend to kind of close the gap and playing a little bit better as well. I think today they are the best team in the NFC, the team to beat.
Yeah, it's interesting you say it's the Packers, yes, but you can make an easy argument for the Saints. You know why you can make an easy argument? Because it should be the Saints. I know the Saints lost to them. I understand they lost to them before. But if you look at the team right now and how they're playing and how they play complementary, balanced football, I will have to say it's going to be the New Orleans Saints. Think about it. Drew Brees was hurt last year, came back and was healthy. Didn't look so good in that playoff game, but still a healthy Drew Brees returned to form. I expect the same this year. And was he going to return to? Oh, a Saints team that is number 1 in total defense. Oh, you got to love that. And is top 5 in scoring, offense, and defense. That's the only team in the NFL that can say that they have that accolade. So when you look at it now, this is a complete team that all it needs is its future Hall of Fame quarterback to return to the mix. That's why I think that they're the favorites. You got to remember about these two teams, Packers and Saints, more than likely is going to be the number 1 seed. The Bucs out of the number 1 seed conversation, all things considered. But the Packers in the playoffs. I keep bringing up this stat because it's amazing. Everyone looks at Aaron Rodgers and sees his greatness and says, why only 1 Super Bowl championship? Well, Aaron Rodgers in his playoff losses, his defense has given up an average of 36 points a game. Average. So if we saw happen last year, they played San Francisco last game. What was that score? 37 points and another playoff loss for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. They have to fix their postseason woes, specifically on the defensive side. Not sure if they fixed that just yet. I'm looking at the more complete team, the easy team to make an argument for. It's the Saints.
No. Go, Pack, go.
Oh.
This is all about the Green Bay Packers. they're the team that is they are ready to go to the Super Bowl. And because here's the thing, Marcellus, a lot of what determines who makes the Super Bowl comes down to matchups. And the biggest Achilles heel that plagues the Green Bay Packers, their run defense. Well, guess what? There's not a dominant run team in the NFC. When I look at the teams that could be in the tournament, the Minnesota Vikings might sneak in, but they're not going to be there really. The San Francisco 49ers, who are really a thorn in the Packers' side, they're not going to be there. So now when I look at the Packers' road to the Super Bowl, they're on easy street. The only team that they could possibly face that is really a dominant run team, the New Orleans Saints. But guess what? They've already dismissed them. They dismissed them on the road. So to think that the Saints are going to come to Lambeau and win, it's not going to happen. This may not be the best team in the NFC, but this is the team that is going to represent the NFC because they won't face the type of teams that traditionally give them problems. And oh, by the way, the MVP candidate, Aaron Rodgers, he can put them on their back if they get in trouble.
It's tough to put a team on your back when you know you walk out of the locker room. You know how that sound with all the cleats on the concrete. Then it gets to the turf, it gets silent. Everybody knows it's the moment of truth. Ball's going to get kicked off. And Aaron Rodgers looked at the scoreboard, and it says 4 quarters of football, 15 minutes each quarter. Oh, by the way, their scoreboard already has 36 points up on it because your defense, I'm not even saying what happened last time. I'm saying every time Aaron Rodgers finds himself in a losing effort in a ball game, the defense is giving up at least 36 points. That's going to be tough sledding. And you just wanted to plow through the fact that New Orleans is 7th ranked in their rushing attack. You said only New Orleans. You said it, and you said it as an afterthought. But that's going to be their priority, to run the football, to test Green Bay on the defensive side. Let's shorten the game. Let's shorten the field. Let's make sure Aaron Rodgers has to watch and get frustrated. And we know Aaron Rodgers, as great as he is, he's going to wear his emotions on his sleeve, especially if he finds himself in another dire circumstance because the defense can't stop the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans has had some highs that we haven't seen from any other team, and they've had them in plenty. We've seen them go against the Bucs twice. We're not even mentioning the Bucs right now in this conversation, in part because the Saints deaded that conversation. But the Packers do have the leg up on the Saints, for all things are equal, in that tiebreaker scenario because they beat them earlier in the season. But as you know, those early season wins don't necessarily manifest the same as it comes postseason time.
You know, and I think it's a great argument that you make. But again, when I look at where this New Orleans Saints team is, and right now their games remaining, I think the Falcons is a tough game for them to play against. The Falcons is one of those teams that they're much better than what people may think that they are, and very capable of beating the New Orleans Saints. Then you have the Chiefs. If Dalvin Cook is healthy, the Vikings are a dangerous team to play against. And then they end with the Panthers. This could very easily be a slide situation where 2 or 3 games get away from this New Orleans Saints team and turns the conversation to a very different conversation that we're having about this New Orleans Saints team. While I look at the Green Bay Packers, they have the Eagles, the Lions, the Panthers is a decent game. But then you have their toughest game left is really the Tennessee Titans. And then you have the Bears, which is a rivalry game, but a very winnable game for this Green Bay Packers team. So I look at Green Bay being situated schedule-wise with the ability to be able to finish out strong. And we all know creating that momentum at the end of the season, going into the playoff hunt, is the best time for a team to be playing their best football. I don't think that the schedule lines up well for the New Orleans Saints to maintain being the hottest team in the NFC, especially without having a healthy Drew Brees. And believe you me, coming back from the injury that he has to come back from this year is much different than the one he had to come back from last year.
Well, yeah, look, that's a great point, LeVar. And, you know, Marcellus brought up the point that they're the 7th-ranked rushing offense. A lot of that is because they're playing the single wing with Taysom Hill. They basically have Tim Tebow at quarterback, so they can't throw it. They're just running it all the time.
True.
Now, that may be the most effective way for them to beat the Green Bay Packers, but do we really believe that Taysom Hill is going to throw enough passes to be able to really lead this team? Worked the first 2 games that he's been in there, partially because they played the Denver Broncos, who had me at quarterback. And then they played another game, and he was hot, and no one knew what Taysom Hill was going to do. But when Drew Brees comes back, They didn't have to hand it to the veteran, and the running game is not the running game that we've seen the last couple of weeks. So everything that the New Orleans Saints do, when they do it with Drew Brees, it doesn't work against the Green Bay Packers in terms of really attacking their weaknesses. So if they're going to play Taysom Hill, that gives them the best chance. But do we really believe that Sean Payton is going to play Taysom Hill when he has a healthy Drew Brees available? I don't think so. And regardless of it, we have seen the Green Bay Packers smack them around. I expect them to do it again.
Yeah, well, I don't expect all of that. That was a little strong at the end. I was liking where you were going, giving us a good argument, and then you stamped it with like, oh, it's going to happen again. Not so sure about this because there's still 30% roughly percent of the season left in terms of games played. A lot can change, but let's figure out who has home field advantage or who has to go on the road. I don't even know if the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers want to stay at home because they're so used to traveling on the road in the postseason. 2/3 of Aaron Rodgers' career playoff games have been on the road or at neutral sites. Not even comfortable at Lambeau because he's not much. He's not at Lambeau that often when it comes to the postseason, and he's the only NFL quarterback ever to play 4 conference championships on the road. So he might have to go to New Orleans. I know there's no fans there, but it's still the Superdome. You think that's going to be an easy task? Oh, now you're saying, well, what if the Saints have to travel? Is that a problem? Who has the most wins away from home in the last 3 years? The New Orleans Saints. They're not just a dome home team. They can travel, and they can travel with that top 5 offense and that top 5 scoring defense, and that all is going to travel well, even if it's up to Green Bay. Coming up, the Browns have won 3 straight against some bad teams, real bad. We'll tell you if Baker Mayfield has anything to prove against the Titans. Next, speak for yourself. Welcome back. Let's head to Cleveland, where Baker Mayfield's Browns are a 6-point underdog on the road against the Titans Sunday, according to Fox Bet. Cleveland has won 3 straight, but those wins were against teams with losing records. Baker still only has 1 win against a winning team this season, back in Week 5 against the Colts. So, Bucky, look, if you buck, can Baker prove anything against the Titans?
No, we already know where Baker is. Baker is a guy who works out as a system quarterback, and he plays in a situation that is really perfect for him. That said, it doesn't make him a franchise quarterback, one that you need to hitch your wagon to long-term because he's going to raise the fortunes of the franchise or reverse the fortunes of the franchise. No, this team is built on their running game. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. They have a playmaker on the outside and Jarvis Landry. The defense is playing at a high level, and they sprinkle in just enough Baker Mayfield to keep the defense honest. But this team will go as their running backs take them. And so I don't believe Baker can show anything. Even if he wins, he plays out of his mind. We all know what he is because we've seen him play the position for 3 years. This is a guy that is driven and successful because of the parts around him, not because of the play that he displays on his own.
I'm with you mostly in the sense that it's not a ton that you can learn from Baker Mayfield, but there is some room for him to go out there and show that he could do more than that's been advertised. Baker Mayfield's weird in this sense. We have a body of work which would stamp him as, like you said, a system quarterback. And no player ever wants to hear that you are a system player because that means it's not based on what you could do in your own efforts and production, but where you are. And it's all based on circumstances. When the Remy's in your system, ain't no telling. But here's the problem. If he goes out there and carries the team, we have a different conversation. But when have we seen Baker Mayfield go out there and carry the team consistently? We just haven't. So Baker Mayfield's in a situation where this team knows what his plan A is. Go out there and run the football. Run the football as best and better than any other team in the NFL. But what happens in playoff football? Plan B football, as they say. We're going to take away your greatest asset, and now we're going to see if you can beat us. Can Baker Mayfield put this team on his throwing shoulder and go out there and beat a good team? Because the good teams are only the teams that last for the playoffs. So I haven't seen it just yet. But with a stretch run coming up with Tennessee, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, Baker Mayfield, who is still trying to get his 5th-year option picked up, so that means you're 2 steps away from being a franchise quarterback or the future quarterback of this team. He needs to be the reason why they win those ball games, not just their plan A in their rushing attack.
You know what I love about this debate is that when you look at the question, can Baker Mayfield prove anything versus the Titans? It doesn't have to be proved that he's a franchise quarterback. And so for me, I say, yes, he can prove some things. He can prove that you can change the narrative that continues to be part of how he is talked about, how he is discussed. When you look at this team, yes, they're having success by the looks of their record. But we all know by the graphic that he's 1-3 versus teams that are above 500. Mm-hmm. This Tennessee Titan team represents the same type of teams he's losing to with what you mentioned in the final games that he has to play out during the course of the year. The Titans are an AFC-built team. They're like the Steelers. They're like the Baltimore Ravens. So if Baker Mayfield, regardless of if he goes out there and he looks like a franchise quarterback and is a world beater that throws for a ton of touchdowns, I'm not really concerned about that aspect of it. You know what? If the conversation changes to, okay, well, Baker Mayfield isn't necessarily a franchise quarterback, but he's a system quarterback that can actually fit the sum of this team in a way that's well enough for us to do well. A Trent Dilfer, some would say a Jimmy Garoppolo. These guys also have their roles and their parts that can play out very well for the total success of the team. So, yes, Baker Mayfield has something to prove and can prove that you can finally maybe start transitioning into talking about the Browns as a legitimate contender as a team, because his play maybe wasn't poor enough or bad enough where we would actually sit here and say them beating a team like Tennessee is the reason why they're a legitimate threat.
Yeah, no, there's nothing he can change. He can't change my mind. Like, I know what he is. When I go to the car lot, if I'm looking for a truck or a trailer, I'm going over to the trailer because that's what number 6 is. He's a trailer. The rest of the team is pulling him along. He's just along for the ride. And here's why I say this. So when I look at Baker Mayfield and I think about the elite quarterbacks and what they do to get their team, the Patrick Mahomes, even the Deshaun Watsons, the Russell Wilsons or whatever, they throw the ball and the team hands them the ball consistently because they know he is their best player. When I look at the Cleveland Browns don't put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hand to do that. And I say it because of this. This year, Baker Mayfield is only averaging 26.7 pass attempts a game, yet they're 8-3. You know what he averaged in the previous years? Last year, 33 pass attempts. His rookie year, 37 pass attempts, because those guys were trying to say, Baker, let's do it. But what Kevin Stefanski has done, he's come in there, he said, nah, that's a recipe for disaster. Less is more when it comes to Baker Mayfield. And because that's the tactic, how can I sit here and say he's the franchise quarterback, the one that I want to put so much money into? He's going to lead us to the promised land when I actually have to hide him for us to have more success. Nah, I'm good on Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, man, you stamping it home now, Bucky. Now we in our lane talking about Baker Mayfield. Woo! 30th ranked passing attack right now, y'all. 30th. How you gonna have the number 1 rushing attack at 30th ranked passing attack? You know what happens then? People look at you like, what is wrong? Is it the weapons? Remember, there was a conversation. Oh, they're going to play better without Odell Beckham. How's that turned out? That's not going to work out for this team. And you can't blame the receiving corps entirely. You have to start to look at a common denominator in Baker Mayfield and why they're not being effective in the passing game. They have the lowest passing rate in the entire NFL. Bucky alluded to those numbers. But then you're 30th ranked? That makes no sense. So unless Baker Mayfield could go out there and make waves instead of just riding waves, then how are we going to trust him to be our franchise quarterback? It almost sounds like LeVar was saying, hey, he's good enough. He could be a system quarterback. Trent Dilfer is way all the way. Even if that's the case, that's not the long-term solution. No franchise, no head coach, no general manager is going to hitch his job security to something that is so short-term as a system quarterback. You always want to evaluate every position and enhance them where you see it's appropriate. Baker Mayfield certainly can be upgraded at that position unless we see in this stretch run and in this postseason that he finally becomes a franchise quarterback.
Familiarity and having a whole lot of execution take place to have success. If they're not losing a whole bunch of games and continuity is playing a key part in why that's happening, prove anything is not prove that you're a franchise quarterback. The one thing that he can prove, if nothing else, is that they can be a legitimate contender that's going to contend in the playoffs. That's what they can prove by beating Tennessee. The conversations of him as a franchise guy, where do we go with Baker and how much can we trust him? Maybe that's a added conversation. But if you can beat the Tennessee Titans, I think it goes a long way in the conversation changing in terms of how we view Baker Mayfield and how we view this Cleveland Browns team.
Nah, LeVar, no. I'm not letting you get away with that argument. Okay, and I'm going to use it in terms that you can understand. You came in the league as a number 2 overall pick. If you came into the league, you walk onto the field, and everybody like, hey, guys, this is our number 2 overall pick, LeVar Arrington. Welcome to the team. But let me tell you, he's just all right. He's just okay. Don't mind him. He's just a guy. Like, no. When you're the number 1 overall pick, you're brought in to be special. You're expected to be the dude. When you walk in, everybody's supposed to look at you play. And once or twice a game, they're supposed to be like, yep, that's that dude. No one's saying that. The only time we can say that about Baker Mayfield when he turns around and hands it to Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. So the problem that you have is now you have to make a decision on whether you pay him. And if you pay him $35 million, you know what happens in the locker room? Everyone now is looking around like, they're giving him money like that? No,
they better pay
I know
me.
I'm going to get mine. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb looking around like, if he get 35, I know I'm getting mine. And we've seen this scenario play out. We saw it happen in Jacksonville. When Blake Bortles got paid, the team fell apart. And so if you're Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and you're looking at Baker Mayfield and you know that the real reason you're winning is because of your running game and your defense, you can't stroke that big check. You can't give it to him. Even though he was the number 1 overall pick, we know he's not special. If you pay him, you run the risk of wrecking your franchise going forward.
Yeah, you don't mess around.
Bucky. You can't be stealing my argument, Swag. I'm the one that leans in with the hand. I lean in with the hand.
Why are you so close to your camera? I'll do that, and I'm still far away. Your ass. All right, here's the thing about it. It's crazy. Y'all flirting with a system quarterback, and I love Bucky bringing up that comp of Blake Bortles. And Baker Mayfield is somewhere in that Blake Bortles, Jimmy G conversation. And right now, that's another comp that is going to actually hurt Baker's chances of being a franchise quarterback unless he changes the narrative through his production. Jimmy G led his team to a Super Bowl in his first year as a full-time starter, was up in that game, had a lead in the fourth quarter with the number 2 defense in the NFL, loses that game, and now there's talks of Jimmy G potentially not being a 49er going forward. And that's Jimmy G, who has something to show for his work and services. If Baker Mayfield doesn't get his team to the ultimate opportunity of a Super Bowl appearance, then what is he going to stand on? If Jimmy G couldn't stand on that, then Baker Mayfield certainly can't. Coming up, Paul George, my dog, is calling out Doc Rivers, my dog. I tell you if I have a problem with that. A little infight, a little beef. Next, speak for yourself. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Let's switch to the NBA and my Clippers. They were title favorites, but they lost the 3-1 series lead to the Nuggets and were eliminated in the conference semifinals. Yeah, we know. All right, so Doc Rivers was shown the exit door, but that's not stopping Paul George from calling out his now former coach. Listen to this.
We went up 3-1. We felt like, we're going to win the next one. We lost. We like, cool, we up 3-2. We're going to win the next one. We lost. But during that whole process, like we never worked on adjustments. We never worked on what to do differently. We just literally having the same happen over and over again.
We lost. Snitching up there. All right, we got to bring in 2 Fox NBA analysts, Chris Broussard and Slick Rick the Bucher. Slick Rick, going to you first. Do you have an issue with Paul George up there wet snitching and blaming Doc Rivers?
I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with you wearing your Clippers gear today, knowing that we were going to have this subject at all either. But no, I have no problem with what he said or that he said it. The truth is that for any of us observing, or at least I had the very questions, and what he said only confirmed my suspicions. I could not figure out why they weren't making any adjustments, why they were continuing to play Lou Williams in the role that he did despite his disappointing performances, why they continued to play Landry Shamet in the way that he ultimately did. This looked like a team that was not being guided in the right way, that desperately needed some leadership and was not getting it. So it doesn't surprise me. And by the way, I have a problem with, we're always asking these guys to be open and honest and to tell us what's really going on. Paul George did exactly that. Now, the one thing that he did not do and that he needed to start with was,
here we go.
Look, I played bad myself, so I got to take some of it on me. And then go on and you can talk about all of the other stuff. The fact that there was no mea culpa, I feel there needed to be, considering the way he played. But the fact that he talked about something that I thought was apparent, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Wow. It's amazing. I'm going to have to sit up here and be the one that breaks it down and be objective about it. Look, everybody knows I'm a Clipper homer, but I'm also not a liar. So I did have a problem with this in some degree. It's interesting. The tone of it made me say, okay, I shouldn't have a problem with it, because he said everything so matter of fact. He didn't pour any hot sauce on it. He didn't come out too spicy. What he said sounded like a State of the Union, like this is what happened. It's just the yeah, but the timing is bad because it's retro, it's post. Like after we're like, we really want to hear all the things that occurred that you didn't do anything about in those moments, but still allowed to play out, and now it sounds like you have some gripes. That started me feeling a little unsettled about what he was saying. But then I started to realize what was really going on. That Paul George knew that he can win this in the court of public opinion because, one, we're talking about Doc Rivers. This is the same Doc Rivers who was the coach of Lob City, Los Angeles Clippers. And we know that when they failed and lost in the playoffs up 3-1 to the Houston Rockets years ago, that Doc Rivers was the coach and chemistry issues were to blame. So if you just go there again, it won't be looked at as just a coincidence. People are going to start to look at Doc Rivers as the common denominator. So I understand that part. But then you start looking at this situation of, oh, y'all didn't practice all year? Really? So you skipped one of the necessary evils? I know that Kawhi Leonard is the ultimate load management player, and supposedly Doc Rivers is the ultimate load management coach. And this was a marriage made in hell because both of those guys didn't want to necessarily practice. But Paul George, like, you're a veteran. You're Paul George. You came in on the buddy pass with Kawhi. That means all the privileges given to Kawhi was given to you. Why didn't you sit there and say we need to go through the necessary evils of practicing or making adjustments? That's my biggest issue. That's being a player and a veteran pro player like Paul George. You're talking about an all-star who doesn't want to sit there and say, stop, let's make sure we handle our business. That, to me, rubbed me the wrong way.
Look, I don't have a problem with him calling out Doc Rivers, because the fact is, Doc deserves some criticism. Doc deserves some blame. You know, not just for this past series. Obviously, he didn't make the adjustments. As Rick said, you could kind of see that they're doing the same thing, that they're playing the wrong guys at the wrong times. You could see that in that series, and Paul just confirmed that. And then Doc, you know, Doc just didn't do a great job in L.A. altogether. You mentioned it, Marcellus. 7 years there. Never got past the second round, even though he had championship caliber talent, both with the Chris Paul, Blake Griffin regime and this past year with Kawhi and Paul George. And the culture that they allowed, now that's an organizational problem, but Doc is a big part of that. At some point, he needed to step in and change things, especially when he saw it going off the rails. However, Paul George still takes an L because some of the things we didn't see in that clip, he was flat out wrong. You can't come out and criticize Doc Rivers with stuff that's wrong. He said they played me like I was Ray Allen or J.J. Redick. I didn't get enough pick and rolls. I didn't get enough post-ups. It was all pin downs and running off screens. Wait a minute. The statistics show, Paul, you have more pick and roll opportunities than any other season in your career. The statistics show you had as many post-ups as you had a year ago in Oklahoma City. The statistics show you have fewer catch and shoots than you did in Oklahoma City. So if you're going to go at Doc Rivers or anybody publicly like that, you got to be right. That's the problem I had with Paul George. When you're wrong, it looks like you're trying to scapegoat. And then it makes it worse when you don't give the mea culpa, Rick. The fact that he was wrong about the criticism and then never owned up to it and said, I didn't deliver, I didn't get it done, that really makes it look bad. And it turns out to be another L for Paul George.
Well, Chris, I'd have to look at the specifics of the statistics in those last 3 games against the Nuggets in terms of how he was used. Because I believe, if he wasn't, he should have been talking about that and the lack of adjustments, because that's really where it went south. Marcellus, you're cracking me up just because you're going, you know what? Paul George pointed out that Doc Rivers was the common denominator in all the disappointments by the Clippers. He didn't make that up. That's the reality. There is one common denominator, and that's freaking Doc Rivers in terms of giving up 3-1 leads in series. So I don't think he's out of turn in saying that. But here's the other part, and this is really the specifics of the bubble, because I haven't forgotten, and I hope you guys haven't. Prior to the bubble, for all of the things that we might have been wondering about the Clippers, we were all still convinced they were moving in the right direction, and they had what was necessary to win a championship. That was based on what they were doing. It wasn't until we got to the bubble where, if you look at the teams that succeeded, chemistry, team chemistry, was the most important factor. You look at the teams that were ultimately in the conference finals: Denver, Lakers, Boston, Miami. What did they all have in common? They all had the best team chemistry. Were they all the most talented teams? I'd make a very strong argument that they were not. Now, the team chemistry, it was the one thing that the Clippers were still working on and had no chance to improve on. And oh, by the way, you come back and your 2 super subs, Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams, are nowhere near what they had been previously. But the problem is, all of that took place, and I never saw Doc try to address it in the bubble at the time. They needed that to happen. So ultimately, I'm still of the mind that the Clippers were on the path to winning a championship if we don't have the shutdown. But we did. There's an adjustment that needed to be made, and it was not made. And who else is supposed to make that other than your head coach?
I just don't want to be misquoted or misstated, Slick Rick, taking shots at my shots, because it's interesting that I think what Paul George did was looked around and didn't want to look fully in the mirror, at least at the time when he did this podcast, all up in smoke. And so he's there, and he's not trying to go all the way with his argument. So now he's going to pick the low-hanging fruit, which is the common denominator between Clipper collapses of a few years ago and Clipper collapses right now. Oh, I could put some of this on Doc Rivers without even intentionally or directly saying it, and you guys are going to run with it. Here's my example. I had an uncle growing up. I was really young, so don't ask me for all the details. But I know he went to jail for theft, maybe even armed robbery, something crazy. But he was nice to me, so I ain't even trip on it. But he comes home, and I remember we were just chilling one time, and my grandma screams out, where's my money in my purse? And then immediately, and it's dozens of people in the room, goes to my uncle who just got home from jail from stealing. Turns out my uncle didn't do it, but he already had that on his record, so it was easy for everybody to kind of believe her in that moment for going there. That's what Paul George did. And you want to know why I know Paul George did that? I'm so plugged in with the Clippers. Right now, Paul George is at the podium during his Clippers introductory press conference for this season. And guess what he said? Quote, I respect Doc Rivers. We were hella motivated. But, quote, I'm the one that blew the 3-1 lead. Paul George says, I'm the one that blew the 3-1 lead. Yeah, he realized and had to backpedal already that too much of this was going towards Doc Rivers and the old regime versus the players. Being a player, I understand that there's times you got to protect us from ourselves because we'll look around and see our talent level and just say, we got this on paper, when really somebody, whether it's a coach or a leader on that team, needs to sit around and says, we need to do something to evoke change. That didn't happen with the leadership with the Clippers last year. Hopefully it happens this year. Coming up in our big story, the Patriots are in the AFC playoff picture, but we'll tell you if we have confidence Cam Newton can keep their hopes alive. Next, speak for yourself. Let's head back to the NFL. The Patriots are 5-6 this season, but they're still only 2 games back for the final wild card spot in the AFC. But there are some issues at quarterback. Cam Newton is coming off an 84-yard passing game with 2 interceptions. But he said earlier this week, quote, what drives me is knowing I have yet to play my best football. Bucky and LeVar are back in the building. So, LeVar, are you confident Cam can keep the Patriots in the playoff hunt?
No, I'm not. And listen, it's been a valiant effort, of course, but the reason why they're not going to be able to make the playoffs is right now they're currently in third in their division, and I don't see them being able to get ahead of Buffalo this year or Miami. So you look at the rest of the games that they have left on their schedule. They have the Chargers. That'll be a struggle for them to be able to win that game. Then you have the Rams. That'll be a struggle. The Dolphins, Bills, and then you got 2 wins possible with maybe the Chargers and the Jets being your last game of the season. But I think they'll lose at least 2 games and maybe 3, and it will be because they're playing better teams, not because Cam Newton wasn't able to lead them to a playoff.
Interesting. I think he's going to keep them in the playoff hunt. I ain't say they were going to win the division. I ain't say that they were even going to make the playoffs. But is he going to play well enough to keep them in the playoff picture? You know, as you always see it, playoff teams 1 through 7, and it says on the bubble or in the hunt. That's where they're going to still be after this week when you talk about Cam Newton. Going back to my track days, there's 2 ways that you can pass somebody up. Either you get faster or they get slower. Same thing happens in the NFL. Either you get better or some teams may get worse. Somehow, some way, I look at the New England Patriots as a team that has not played up to its optimal level. Just like Cam Newton has said, he hasn't consistently been Cam Newton. In flashes, we've seen brilliance from Cam Newton. But in consistency, we have not seen that just yet. But that's why I believe in Cam Newton right now in this moment. Despite what we saw against Arizona, I got a full screen for you showing you who Cam Newton has been the last few weeks. Look at that completion percentage, 71.7. Oh, that's franchise quarterback money right there. Total yards per game, 266. Okay. What about that passer rating? Oh, anytime you see triple digits, you know you're working with somebody. And rush touchdowns. Now, there's a category I left off here, obviously, and it's not 0 giveaways. It's passing touchdowns. And that's why I say that they have not played up to their optimal level just yet. But that may be coming last part of this season. But, yeah, New England Patriots, because of Cam Newton, will still be in the playoff picture.
Oh, that's more than being in the playoff picture. I'm going to say go ahead and pin them in. The Patriots are in the playoffs, and here's why. Wow. When I look at the top teams in the AFC, you have to be a team that is built to play the right way. When I look at the teams that are in the playoff picture in the mix, 3 of those teams sit at the top of the board in rushing yards. The Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee Titans, the Baltimore Ravens. But also, the New England Patriots are 5th in rushing yards, averaging 149 a game. And even though we've said Cam Newton hasn't played well as a passer, his ability to impact the game as a rusher certainly helps. You pulled up that stat, Marcellus. You put up the board where you said no giveaways. Well, we know that's the #1 deciding factor in how you win football games. And so as long as Cam Newton isn't turning the ball over and the Patriots are able to run, they are going to win games. And the last point about this, they get a chance to play all of their division rivals. So in my mind, they control their destiny. They should have beat the Buffalo Bills, they beat the New York Jets, and they beat the Miami Dolphins. Those are winnable games for them. I'm looking at the Patriots, and I'm saying this is a team that is going to get hot at the right moment. I think the New England Patriots are going to the playoffs for sure.
Wow. I think that's a very bold proclamation, but I'm
bold
just going to
and
continue. I'm just, and sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm not. You know, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. I'm not gonna jump at that one. I'm gonna stay consistent with what I'm saying. I see them losing at least 3 out of the last 5 games that they play. I think it sounds good in conversation to say that this team is not turning the ball over. That sounds amazing because they haven't. I think showing what Cam's stat line has been and how impressive it has looked and how it has, you know, what it's been since he's earned it, I think it looks good, but I think it's overstated. I do not see them as a team, personnel-wise, that is going to be able to beat the likes of a Los Angeles Rams team. When we say winnable games, I look at this team right now, and I do not see them being able to win against the Miami Dolphins this next time around. I look at the Bills game, and to say that they almost won it, you know, I played on a Washington football team that almost won a whole lot of games with a whole lot of good players on the rosters. And because we weren't a good enough team, we did not win those games. So we almost won a lot. I think this New England team has almost won games. I think they'll continue to almost win games. I just don't think they will win those games.
Man, I wish y'all were in the same room right now because Bucky could give you his glasses so you could see this picture a lot clearer. Because I don't think LeVar really knows how good the Patriots are. I don't think the Patriots know how good they are. And
they must not.
And I'm not talking about high-level execution, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just talking about at their peaks, when they actually get into a good groove, you can see this team actually can make some noise. Think about it. This year has been fluid, especially for the Patriots. We all thought this offseason they were going to be sorry. Bums, 5 wins maximum. Then Cam Newton shows up, and you're like, yeah, I don't even know if Cam can stay healthy, let alone be accurate. I think they're going to be a little better than bums, but not that good. No playoff expectations. And then you watch them play in the first couple of weeks, and all of that changed. Then COVID hits him again, throws Cam off his game, and then now he's starting to rebound as of late. But this is a team that's beaten the Dolphins, beaten the Ravens, beaten the Cardinals, beating the Raiders. Look at all these playoff contending teams, if not in the playoff teams, that they've beaten. You're saying that they can't run this schedule? Look who they have left. You say a Rams team, but a Rams team that lost to the 49ers and lost to the Dolphins, they can't beat them? I think they can.
A familiar opponent.
Chargers.
A familiar opponent. But
Dolphins, Bills, that's familiarity if you want to go there.
Okay.
The New York Jets, all winnable games, I would say, if you're the New England Patriots. But what's more interesting for them is the way that they're going to have to play in December and how that's just perfect for what they do. It's just running the football. Cam Newton leading in terms of him being a rusher, 387 yards. This is a great pace for Cam. He's 4th amongst quarterbacks right now. And you talk about them having the 5th rushing attack. And the defense, as long as they keep them in these games, they play close to the vest without the penalties, I can see it happening, especially with that schedule. Only the Rams really stick out. And even in that situation, I think they could beat the Rams.
You know, that's the funny thing, because it is about the combination of the schedule. It's not just the Patriots in just terms of talking about them in a vacuum and whether they're talented enough to go to the playoffs. It's talking about them and how they play versus the teams that are on their schedule. We laid it out. The Chargers, the Rams, then we talk about 3 divisional games. That gives them a chance. Now, will it be easy in terms of will they blow any of those teams out? No. But what we're learning is as Cam embraces the Patriot way, which is really take care of the ball, let the rest of the unit of the team work for you, you have a chance. And as Stephon Gilmore comes back and gives them that Defensive Player of the Year on the island, and as this defense continues to improve and begin to get the takeaways and begin to get the explosive plays in the kicking game, this team is problematic. And don't underestimate this fact when it comes to those 3 divisional games. Even though the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins are sitting ahead of the New England Patriots, they still see the boogeyman when that team runs out onto the field. They haven't been able to knock off that team in 20 years. And so because of that, it still hangs in the balance. I'm not saying that the Patriots are Mike Tyson, but I saw Roy Jones Jr. last Saturday. I saw his knees knock a little bit when Mike Tyson ran out. And those body blows, they still matter. The Patriots can deliver them.
I like the deflection that you gave there. and Marcellus, they must not have played that simple young game that you teach with your kids when they're growing up. It's called memory. You remember you turn over the cards, then you try to figure and you match them, and then you get off the board.
Yeah, yeah.
Earlier on, you were ridiculing me for being at 500 as a coach. Like, oh, LeVar, 500 as a coach. Oh, you're no good as a 500 coach. No, I thought that one piece of interesting information that has been left out of this discussion has been the Patriots' record. How about let's just start there? Huh? What's their record? Since they're in playoff contention and all this good stuff that y'all, what's their record?
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
That's sub 500. You are what your record says you are. You are what your record.
Well, you don't get the benefit of the doubt.
You are.
You don't have any hardware. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. At least Belichick, and like you said,
he ain't got it with Cam Newton. So they have no hardware together.
Those ghosts start showing up when you start seeing that the Patriots uniform is where the dynasty was created. Get you a dynasty first, then we'll start believing in you. Coming up, the Rams and Cardinals have a huge matchup on Sunday. You got me there, LeVar. But we'll tell you which team has more to prove. Next, speak for yourself. Some good wins, though. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Let's head to the NFC West. Rams and Cardinals have a big matchup Sunday on Fox. The Rams are a game up on Arizona in the standings, but both teams are looking up at the Seahawks for the top spot in the division. So, Bucky, who has more to prove this weekend, the Rams or the Cardinals?
Oh, it's all about the Cardinals. The Cardinals have a lot to prove because they've fallen apart a little bit down the last few games. They haven't been able to finish games. And it appears that defense have caught up to Kyler Murray. They're keeping him in the pocket. We saw what the Patriots were able to do, kind of make him throw from the well, and he hasn't responded well. What we want to see from the Cardinals, I want to see if Kyler Murray can take his game up a notch. I want to see if Cliff Kingsbury can help him. And then finally, defensively, I want to see how does Vance Joseph get after Jared Goff. Jared Goff has been struggling, having a lot of turnovers. Can Vance Joseph turn up the pressure and make Jared Goff melt?
I look at. Oh, go ahead, Marcel. Go ahead.
It's your fault.
Yeah,
go ahead. You're above 500. You can have the floor if you want to talk, Coach. Let me hear it.
I was just going to say very quickly. I mean, if you look at this Los Angeles Rams team, they had a Super Bowl hangover last year, right? So
9-7. That's a hangover. Okay.
Yeah, because they underperformed. I mean, if you go from the Super Bowl to where they were at last year, I'd say it's a hangover.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, to be where they're at right now, there's more pressure on the Rams. For the very simple facts that Bucky just laid out, I look at this young Arizona team as a team that's up and coming. It's not their time just yet. They're trying to transition to being their time. You got a young quarterback. You just got him with the likes of DeAndre Hopkins. Larry Fitzgerald, timeless wonder, but he's at the end. You look at this dang Rams team, and I see so much talent. I see so much potential that we've seen play out all the way to the Super Bowl. And Goff didn't have the type of year that you would think that he would have. It's like kind of, like I said, a hangover year for them. I look at them as having more to prove because I feel like they're more Super Bowl ready than the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's the Rams. More to prove, and also the expectations. Like, you're supposed to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Why? Because you've been beating the Arizona Cardinals since Sean McVay has arrived in Los Angeles. They won 6 straight against the Cardinals. So if you look at the Cardinals right now, it takes me back to my Buffalo Bills years and one of my fond memories of Doug Flutie, if you guys remember Doug Flutie. Flutie Flakes. There was a mania that took over the NFL for like a year or so because Doug Flutie was out there killing folks. And you know how he did it? Because he was a smaller, shorter quarterback who didn't want to stand necessarily behind the offensive line. He liked to get on the edges. He liked to use his legs. He would run the football even at times. Same thing with Kyler Murray, but it's interesting that one day we faced the New York Jets, and I think Bill Belichick was the defensive coordinator at that time, and we saw a different defense, the mastermind of Belichick. Let's send them on the edges, the linebacker, Sam and Will. Keep them in the well, as you say, Bucky. Make them stand behind those trees, and let's see them dish. Uh-oh. It got a little different for Doug Flutie, as it's been a little different for Kyler Murray of late. It seems like if they don't get their running game going, they've challenged Kyler Murray to beat him in the pocket, and so far, he's not been able to answer that call. And this is all before facing the Rams team that, if you look at them, they have not allowed a 300-yard passer this entire season. Let's put up the stats of this Ram defense. Everyone always talks about Aaron Donald. Duh. Aaron Donald might be the best player in the NFL. But let's talk about this Rams defense as a collective. Total defense, what are they? Second. Passing defense, third. Takeaways, tied for fourth. And scoring defense, fourth. It's a damn good defense. And that's all while Kyler Murray's coming in there a little hurting in the confidence department because of what he's not been able to do of late.
Yeah, no, this is a huge problem for the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams defense is lights out. They're playing at a high level. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey is playing like the best cornerback in football, and so it's going to be a challenge for DeAndre Hopkins. But the reason why this is a game that the Cardinals really have to prove that they're worthy of being in the conversation as a playoff contender is because they are playing against a team that has Super Bowl pedigree. The Rams were 2 years removed from being able to be there. So from a measuring stick standpoint, this is a game that really can let the Cardinals know where they stand and where they stack up in the NFC. And for Kyler Murray, this is a game where we came into the year talking about Kyler Murray could be a dark horse candidate as an MVP. Well, if that is true, then you need to step your game up. And they need him to take his game up to another level. He needs to add another dimension. The one thing that really works for the Cardinals, their ability to run the ball. They're fourth in rushing offense. So if they can lean into the run with Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds, and also Kyler Murray giving them that extra in the run game, that could be something that allows them to really get that passing game untracked against a tough Rams defense.
Yeah, I like how you said step your game up, Kyler Murray. And somebody I'm looking at right now step their game up. LeVar Arrington, man, good luck and congratulations on your new radio show. Up on Game with TJ Hushmanzada and Plaxico Burress. Oh, y'all going to be getting it in, which premieres tomorrow at 1 Eastern on Fox Sports Radio. Congrats, big dog. Keep killing it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Now, I'd like an invite anytime soon. All right, coming up, Uncle Jimmy is ending the week by defending Baker Mayfield. I've got it. Here it is. Next, speak for yourself. I know you ain't put me on your show, LeVar. You hate me. Before we go, we already had some thoughts on Baker Mayfield, but Uncle Jimmy is actually coming to his defense. Wow, the floor is yours, Uncle. Good luck.
Hey, man, I can tell you in 3 words why you got a problem with Baker Mayfield.
No, you can't.
Expectations. Okay? All right.
All right.
Man, let me tell you something, man.
What?
Hey, y'all's problem with Baker Mayfield. I'm starting to love me some Baker Mayfield, okay?
Why?
Hey, man, Baker Mayfield, just the name Baker Mayfield alone sound like a cheap cigarette. You know, like you just want to holler out, hey, run into town and pick up a pack of Bakerfield 100, please. See, Baker Mayfield got the Browns sitting at 8-3 right now.
Yeah.
Means that boy can lose every game for the rest of the season and finish 8-8. To finish 8-8 in Cleveland means he's great. Minus expectation. The problem with expectations is you would think that an old NFL player out of shape can beat a 5-year-old in a foot race. But it don't always happen, does it, White?
I ain't messing with you, man. Hey, that beach is longer than I am.